to start with, we'll just have a blank slate. And in this brief demo, we're going to cover some data ingestion, some of the different capabilities that CluedIn has to help you master your data, help you solve your what really is the biggest foundational data challenge that every company has. That's something that over years of being a data professional, I've learned that solving the foundational issue of dirty data is the first step that always has to be done in order to solve business problems and just change how your business operates to bring improvement. So we're starting here with the CluedIn interface. This is a fresh install or a fresh organization. It only has the initial user and organization loaded into the data set. And there's a bunch of things that can be done here. We're not going to go too far into depth in a lot of the advanced features, but it has capabilities of bringing in data through the integrations. It has data governance features, works well with GDPR and other compliance regulations. It has some tools for helping with data preparation. Engine room is kind of for admins to be watching and seeing how the servers are doing. Management allows us to manage the kind of the data semantic model that your company will use. Rule builder, we'll get into that some during the demo. There's deduplication features as well. And there's ways to consume the data. So in the demo today, we have already set up export target to load to SQL Server, and we have streams that will be streaming out both person and organization data to the SQL Server, which will then be showing in Power BI. So to get started, let's just start by importing some data and showing a little bit about how this works. So we're going to start with loading in a fairly basic companies list. Right here, we're just loading in 22 companies, kind of randomly selected. All this data that we're working with today is just fake data. Well, almost all of it. There's a little bit that is actual, and I'll point that out when we get there. So we're going to upload this, comes in, and the first thing that we have to do is kind of map this data into the semantic model that we're using. When you first load in, you get a preview of the data set, and there's a few things that I always spend a little time looking at new data to understand the shape of it. What we see for the ID field is it is a sequential ID, just 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are things that we do not want the system to use as an ID. We don't want it to use it as an entity code because there's a potential for merging and stuff and potential for use of whatever is the entity code. But what we have in here that is a unique identifier for companies would be their website. More than one company is not going to have the same website address. So we're going to switch the auto mapping of bringing in these companies or these organizations to use the website as the origin entity code versus the ID. So as we're coming in here and changing the origin entity, you can see a bunch of the different things that are everything that you bring in. There's always going to be created date. There's going to be modified date. It will auto-generate these, but if you have that included in your data set, so if you have a data set and you want to keep track of when things were originally created or when things were last modified, and that's in your data that you're bringing in, you can map those fields in, and CluedIn will use those fields. We are also going to add in a entity code here for website. And for this demo, we're going to use an origin value of Ignite. We will get rid of the entity code on the ID, as we don't want that in there. Next, finish. And take a quick stop through the validate area. We'll see that total of 22, 0 failures. Okay. Next, we'll go to process. And when we confirm this data, we'll hop over to Power BI. We'll hop over to Power BI. And you can see the company count is increasing. And yes, this is fairly underwhelming for the first thing in a demo, but we're just loading in the first data set. So we did see, we got data from, we're putting in the CluedIn, and it's immediately changing here in Power BI. I need to get this window next. Okay, so inside of the interface, let's just take a quick look at some of the data that got loaded. So if we look here, we see, for example, DocuSign, top of the list. Now, in the data set that we loaded, we only had that ID, the name, and a website. But when we look at DocuSign, there's a lot more data that's here. And so what CluedIn did through using one of the web enrichers that we've configured and enabled here, what it did is it took the, from the website, it took the domain from this, actually took this website and went to the website itself and crawled a bunch of the metadata from the website. So it pulled stuff that DocuSign has on their website about, what technologies. It pulled their LinkedIn ID, pulled a description and stuff. So it pulled that out of the website and has now enriched the data here. There's other enrichers that you can use to bring in more data as well. But it went and did that for everything that it found good data for. This one's kind of interesting, and it's a company called NetEase, which I think was bought by Chinese, and everything on it's been changed now. Or is it either Chinese or Japanese? Um, okay, so that's pretty much it for the company, just the company load. What we will do next is go ahead and start to load in some person data and to point out some of the other features. So we're going to bring in the retail customer data set. And we'll go through the same type of process, but we will continue to add all of our data sources to the CRM group that we're using for this demo. And it's a fairly representative data set that a lot of CRM tools would export type of data. First thing we'll do here is just add in the 11th column so that we can see it in this preview view. A few things to point out as we're looking at this. We see that the ID field has a GUID. Pretty safe to use GUIDs as an ID. You're not going to get duplicates in GUIDs. We have name fields. Looks fairly consistent. Nice normal title case here. Phone numbers, we got some missing, even some with some weird characters showing up. We have email, some blanks there. When we look at the state column, we'll see that there's California, here's Texas, spelled wrong. We got Florida, we got Florida. So we can definitely see that there's some dirtiness in the state column here. And one of the things we'll do is show you how that can get cleaned up. Also on the membership levels, we have just have numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3 as the different membership levels, which align with the terms that the company actually uses, which is be copper, silver, gold, and platinum. We'll show you ways that all this can get cleaned up through the process. So as we map this data in, we're going to map it into the person entity type, which is kind of a built-in thing in CluedIn to represent people, and the user vocabulary, which is the vocabularies are really the key for mapping things, but we're going to make a couple changes to this. In this case, the ID, which was a GUID, is perfectly fine to use as the main entity code for this data set coming in. But on the entity codes, I'm going to change the email one to use Ignite as our origin value. And we're going to add in the phone number as another. Accidentally click that little alert pop up. So we're going to add the phone number in as another entity code for use with merging of the data. Okay, next and finish. And as we kind of see the map here, which is similar to other tools that help you with data governance and mapping where and tracking tools similar to Purview and others. In here, we see that there's 3 fields now that have the used as entity code showing under them. And that's what we'll do for now. We'll do a quick validate on the data set, and we see 79 failures. Well, it's kind of, it's nice to, when we take a look at the report, what we see is that there's null values in the user postal code and null values in the email field. And that's pretty much all the validation failures that it's finding right now. The postal code is set up as a, with the location stuff and the geo tracking capability, not geo tracking, but the kind of the location built in smarts that CluedIn has to be able to identify and track things. And it's because of the mapping in our vocabulary for this postal code, it's flagging any of them that don't have it. Same type of thing with email, but that's okay. We can still go ahead and load the data even though it doesn't. It has some failures in the what it's looking for. So we're going to go ahead and process this data in, and we'll come back to our Power BI report. And in this dashboard that we have right now, it's basically showing the people that we have. It's showing out of those people how many have email addresses, how many have phone numbers associated with them. And then this table right here is to show, how many people work are associated with each of the different companies. And it doesn't load by default. Now, this is because the information, the way that CluedIn tracks this is through relationships between organizations and the people. And it's built on the organization side. So what we just did is we loaded people in, which affected the person entity type. But to fix this, we're just going to need to run a reprocess on the organization data. And to do that, we're going to do it through a GraphQL statement. So GraphQL, really powerful, rich language for dealing with large, well, with any type of data set, and it's completely built into the CluedIn platform. In fact, pretty much every single thing that's done through CluedIn is done through a GraphQL statement. So run that statement there, and we've updated the dashboard. So we reprocess that data. It finished. Well, it already had the edges created, but then that ended up reprocessing it, which streamed it out to SQL Server and is replicated here into Power BI. So now we can see that, for example, with Mattang, I went ahead and put our employees in here. All of them except for one Canadian who we didn't have Canada as we didn't put country into the data set. So, but for the U.S. employees, this is kind of the breakdown of where we are right now. So going back to here, and one of the things that I'll point out, actually, we'll just use Mattang as an example here, is the way that it has built edges. So CluedIn is built on top of a graph database, Neo4j. And what it does with that is it stores relationships between entities. You can have relationships all over the place. So we have our company showing here, and it found this. You might have noted that there was no, when we loaded the person data, there was no thing about what company they work with. There was no job titles. There was nothing like that. Well, there's no job titles still in here, but it found the relationships based off of the email domains. So recognize that, hey, that company is a domain mattang.com. All these people had email addresses at mattang.com. So it created relationships between them. So hop back to Power BI. So there's a couple things that we look at on this that we'll clean up. When we look at the members level, we just have the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. So let's go ahead and get these mapped into our actual membership levels. Let's come back here, and to do that, we're going to use the rules engine. Now we have a rule built in here, and it's a fairly powerful rule engine that has a lot of different capabilities. But for example, on the copper level, we're flagging it to look at the vocabulary field membership level, and if it equals 0, then we're going to have an action to set a value, and there's a bunch of different actions that we can do. We can use this to create aliases or tags or add new values, change values, delete values, change entity types, or whatever based upon things. And we can also create our own rules. So if this rule doesn't actually do what we need it to do, we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that. And just as I mentioned with the organization and the linking, we're going to have to just do a quick reprocess on the person type as well. So we come over here. What we'll see in just a second or two is the numbers will get replaced with the words. No more numbers left. Everything is aligned with the actual membership level. Great. Other things that we notice here when we look at the states information here, uh, we can see that the count of people per state. So we have Texas, California, and then we have Texas spelled wrong. We have New York, California, New York, no space, no capital, Florida's. So let's go ahead and use the CluedIn Clean capability, which is built on the Open Refine technology, which originally started as it's been around for 15, 16 years. Google had started it called Google Refine. They ended up open sourcing it and gave it to the Apache Foundation about 13, 14 years ago. And CluedIn has included it as a platform internal in the CluedIn for use with cleaning data or doing refinement of data. Ton of capabilities in this platform. There's ways of identifying information, clustering information. We'll focus just on the state one for the purpose of this demo and keeping it short, but there's a lot of different capabilities this tool. There's ways of transforming lots of different things. There's editing columns, there's adding new columns, transposing. There's a lot that can be done, and there's also ways of doing data reconciliation through this as well. So let's go ahead and create a text facet on the state. And over here on the left-hand panel with that facet, it shows us all the different things. So we can see a couple versions of California, 3 Colorados, 5 different Florida versions, a couple Texas down here. And so we're going to use the clustering capability, which is using some fairly standard and powerful ways of identifying similarities between data sets. So it recognized that Florida and Florida are probably the same using this this tool. We'll check out the key collision and kind of go through some of the different functions that are enabled and just kind of cycle through them. And what we can do is by clicking on the one that we like, that sets the one that it's going to merge the others into. That one there, and on the nearest neighbor, it finds Florida and Florida's. So we'll merge that. And now when we look at this list over here, there's a single California, single Colorado, single Florida, single Texas, single New York. Everything's been cleaned up and merged together. And that's all you have to do. What this ends up doing is it creates a basically just a script of how the cleaning, or what the cleaning process is. And what CluedIn does is it takes the script and it creates rules internal inside of CluedIn to run. This script can be created in a dev instance, copied from there into a production instance, and edited as well. So that's it, no save. We're just gonna close Open Refine. And then when we come over here and commit the data, this is gonna make the changes and immediately push it back to the data set. So we'll see these states cleaning up. And that's it, cleaned up. Pretty fast way of cleaning up some data. Now I did mention that with Open Refine, this creates rules, but by default, when you commit this button, or when you hit the commit button here, those rules get applied only to the data set that is currently already loaded. It doesn't apply to new data coming in. But we created a process here. And so if we go back to the rule engine that we used for fixing the membership levels, we'll see that there's a bunch of new rules that are created here. And if we want these rules that we created to apply to all new data that's coming in, we can just activate those rules. And so for the next data set coming in, it'll automatically get cleaned up. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the first data set. We have right now we see that we have a chart down here for new members per year, but it's blank. We just have everyone showing. We still have some email or missing counts in here across the country. It's showing these charts are showing how many are missing just email or missing phone number, or they're good data if they're blue and they have everything. So let's go ahead and bring in another data set. So this next data set is going to represent some kind of an online customer list, something like what you'd get from Shopify or some other online vendor wherever you get a customer list. And we're going to do the same type of thing as we bring this in. I'll start by adding in the additional missing columns, or the additional columns that are not shown by default. So this data set has 13 columns coming in. We'll notice that the ID field is a sequential ID. And so this is one that we would not want to use as a main identifier for the platform. We have full name. We have all caps for this. Emails. If we did check everything here, we'd see that we have complete coverage. Nothing is empty there. Phone number. We do have some empties here. Membership level. We have the words. No. I'll also point out in the state that we still have issues with spelling. So we have Florida here. We have Texas here. I'm going to use this guy, Bernie Tibbetts, as an example. So I'm just going to grab that name and copy it into my clipboard for now. And as we go through the mapping process, it'll be fairly similar to before, but we are going to change the entity code that we were using. We're going to bring this back into the person, entity type, user vocabulary. And we will edit the mapping here. Map entity. And let's just open up these. For the origin code on this one, we're going to use email. Looking at the data, we had email across everything. Down here, though, we will get rid of using ID as an entity type. We'll go ahead and add in the phone number. Right. And we're going to edit the email one and give it the origin value of Ignite. Okay, so that's all that we need to do. It's what it's going to use is either the phone numbers or the emails to recognize similarities between the data sets. Next, finish. If we check the validate again, it shows 17 failures. This time it's all just postal codes. So what this says is, hey, we do have emails for everybody. Oh, one other thing to actually, it's time to jump into prepare. So we showed you with the CluedIn clean function that you can clean the data that's already in there, but we can also clean kind of filter the data as it's coming in. And not quite as powerful as a CluedIn clean function, but this is a way to add in some filters and add in some ways to clean your data coming in. We're going to go ahead and fix the capitalization of the names and just use the transform to change the names to title case as we're bringing the data in. But there's a bunch of other things that can be done as well with the data sets as you bring in. So for example, there's filtering. We can, through a regex search, or just bring in fields that are not empty, are empty, some other types of searching. And then the transforms, we can trim the data so we can get rid of spaces or other values on either end. We can even set values for fields and stuff. But for now, we're just going to use the to title case. And like the process in clean, what it does is it kind of saves the script of things. So it's a non-destructive way of changing things. The script, once we run this prepare, will be stored in an archive of prepare statements, and they can be later accessed. Okay, that's pretty much it. And when we click the process button, it's going to go ahead and process the data into CluedIn. Let's do that. Yes, commit. And we'll have back here. And what we'll see is, in just a few seconds, we'll see the data showing up. There we go. Email accounts showing up. We got members per years filling in. A few changes to member per level. So we have now full coverage on email count. There's no more false showing here. We do still have a few that are missing phone number. Our employee count, we still need to refresh the organization. Perhaps we'll come back to the GraphQL and run that organization query one more time. And what we'll see is that 57 will change to much higher, and we'll kind of finish mapping everything in. And that pretty much concludes our demo for today. So what we've shown here is the ability to import data from various sources that is a fairly, I've been doing analytics work for many years, and this is a very representative data set of what I get from many customers to build stuff for as far as a mastered customer list. Things that I'm always doing at the beginning is kind of profiling data, looking for data quality issues. Do we have missing email addresses? Do we have missing phone numbers or locations and stuff? How do we handle duplicates in the data, or how do we handle deduplication of the data? How do you handle merging of those records? Um, those are capabilities that are built straight into CluedIn, as far as its ability to bring in data sets from pretty much anywhere. We at Mattang specialize in building integrations that interact with the core CluedIn capabilities. We built them with Salesforce, for example. We've built some other ones in the life sciences area. We're working on some with some sports teams and some marketing agencies now. And from that work, we've become very familiar with how CluedIn works. So what we'd like to do is to conclude this for now. And if you have any additional questions, please contact us and let us know.